heck is he doing in there?
Hey, Russ.
Yeah?
Can I give you a help in the shop?
All right. Where are you?
Other side of the purple pipe.
What are you doing out here?
Hey man, I'm just finishing up this lube job on this chain. I watched a YouTube video from another channel and they taught me how to properly do this. Can you take a look, make sure that's good?
With a pry bar.
Well, it's a little small for what
got
it said we needed, but yeah, I figured it'd work.
Okay, and what else you got here? Belt dressing? What are you doing with belt dressing?
The O-rings, right?
For the O-rings. Extra lube?
Hey guys, Nick here, Redline Power Sports, Waukesha, Wisconsin. If you don't want to be that guy, tune in to this week's Run It to Redline Tip of the Week, and we will show you how to properly lubricate a motorcycle chain. All right, stay tuned. Hey guys, Nick here, Redline Power Sports, Waukesha, Wisconsin. Now that we get all that mess cleaned up, let's talk facts and how to properly clean and lubricate a motorcycle chain. Russ, we got the bike up on the lift. We got the situation all cleaned up here. Let's talk about this. I'm a first-year track rider. The bike only sees track use. Obviously, differences between track and street riding. Let's talk about some of the things you look for when a motorcycle comes in your shop when you're cleaning and lubricating the chain.
Well, I look for a number of things, especially if it's a street bike. I'm going to treat it a little bit differently than if it's a track bike. Street bike, you're definitely going to want to lube more frequently because you're putting on, quite frankly, just more miles. Track bikes, we see, bursts of, I guess, high performance, but you're going to basically lube it before every outing. Whereas, on the street, I would say you're probably going to want to lube the chain every 300 to 500 miles, or depending on size fuel tank. I don't know what's easier for you guys to keep track of. But 300 to 500 miles is the rule of thumb.
So for me this year, I did 9 track days. I lubricated and cleaned my chain twice. Do you feel that's sufficient for this type of?
Probably could do a bit more, to be honest with you. You don't want to be doing it so much that you're soaking it, because what you'll end up with is up by the counter sprocket, you'll end up with just like a big gooey mess that it'll actually start dripping out of the front.
Okay.
But I'd probably say, you can run your hand on it, see when it starts to get dry, or it'll actually even start collecting just gunk from the track, that kind of thing. But like I said, what will happen is if you lube it too much, you'll end up with just a big mess up front.
All right, so let's talk about products, right? Because you go down to a local hardware store, there's a whole aisle of chain lube, whatever you can use. Obviously, we put a couple gag items up here to kick in the video.
These are definitely not ones you want to be using. Belt dressing
is not sanctioned?
Not on the list, yeah.
So what products do you recommend? What do you use?
Right.
And, how do you use it?
Well, we have a couple go-tos that we use at the shop here. We're a big fan of Maxima for chain lubes. Bel-Ray is also really another nice one. Number of good ones, but the main difference between what you'll find at the local hardware store, and that kind of thing, is those chain lubes being $3 or $4 for a can of this size. You're going to find they're going to lube your chain, but for a very short amount of time. These chains, if you remember, it's got a gear ratio, so the wheel is spinning faster than the engine in a lot of cases. So that's going to end up with what a lot of places you'll see on them where they say no sling. What that means is, like on this chain lube, it actually gets tackier as it dries, so it's going to help adhere to the chain better. Where the cheap brands that you find at the local hardware store for like $3 or $4, they're going to sling, and then that big gooey mess that I was talking about before, that's just going to happen every time you lube the chain, because it's going to come off the chain and end up there. And doesn't actually do a lot of lubing.
That sounds terrible to have to work with every time too.
Yeah, it's a big mess to clean up, and obviously you got to do extra work to remove your linkage and all that to get in there.
So now that we got the products figured out, let's talk about application. What are you looking for prior to the application itself and afterwards?
Right. So, the big thing is, maintenance in general is just it goes a long way. These chains, they're stronger than ever, but they still require maintenance. These are O-ring chains, so there's an O-ring between each link. The O-ring is designed to keep, the grit and the grime from the road and the track out of the rollers. In between each one of these is a roller. And that roller actually is moving and rolling around. When you're not lubing the chain, that gunk can find its way in there, and then it acts like sandpaper on the inside of the roller, and that's why your chain actually physically gets longer.
So time out, Russ. As a new rider, let's talk about an O-ring chain versus another kind of chain.
Well, there's O-ring and then there's non-O-ring. O-rings technically, by a very small amount, will reduce performance, but the benefit of keeping the chain clean and longevity outweighs the performance, especially in like street applications. But you'll see in very high-end, race applications where there will be a non-O-ring chain.
So O-ring chains, it's safe to say, are on newer motorcycles?
O-ring chains, yeah, pretty much anything from, late 90s, early 2000s and on are all going to be pretty much standard. There are O-ring chains and then there are X-ring chains, and we can go into that in further detail later, but the X-ring, the idea behind that is it has less friction than an O-ring chain.
All right, so thank you for that. Let's talk about the application process now.
Sure, as far as like the putting the lube on the chain.
The cleaning agent and then the lubrication.
Right, so the cleaning agent is actually safe for the O-rings that we just talked about. The cleaning agent, you don't want to use heavy solvents like brake cleaners, especially anything flammable like gasoline or anything like that. That's obviously just not safe. But this is safe for the O-ring because the more caustic solvents and that kind of sort of thing will actually cause the O-rings to swell. They actually swell so badly that they'll end up falling out of the chain, which is obviously no.
Some of these wives' tales of gasoline, diesel, kerosene, big no-nos, right?
Big no-no, yeah. That's why they actually make a product for it. So what you want to do with this stuff is spray it on. I usually spray the inside of the chain and the outside of the chain for the cleaner. It does kind of make a mess, so you're gonna want to put down cardboard or some sort of other something to catch it. You don't want. They also sell these. They're called grunge brushes. These are awesome, big time savers. You can do it with a regular brush, but you just have more nooks and crannies to get around. This does 3 sides of the chain at one time on the underside, and then you can go on the inside here, and it cleans all the sides at once. And then you safely want to take a rag and rotate the wheel slowly, clean everything off, and then at that point you can lube the chain.
So again, new guy's perspective here, seems like you could pretty easily get your fingers pinched in there pretty badly.
You definitely want to make sure you're out of there, and you never want to do it with the bike running. I think that goes without saying, but I've heard worse stories. So always with the bike off, wheel in the air if you can. If you don't have a nice stand like this, you can do it with the wheel on the ground. You'll just have to inch the bike forward a couple inches at a time and do a section, 6-8 inch section, and then wheel it forward and do it again. And then as far as putting the lube on, like I said before, what we like to do is we actually like to spray, oftentimes comes with a straw. You'll even see some things where you can buy where it'll spray on both sides. I'm not a big proponent of those. We do this professionally every day. And what we do is we'll spray on the inside of the chain, not to make sure you get it on the tread of the tire. You don't want anything slippery there. But spray on the inside, we like that because then it has to work its way through the chain. You see a lot of people spray it from the back, and on the outside, it does lube the chain. I mean, it's better than nothing, but at the same time, I think the inside is the better bet because then it has to work its way through the chain.
Seems a little counterproductive spraying on the outside. Centrifugal force is going to take that and want to pull it as much as you can. I see that.
Yep, and then once you do spray it on, keep the wheel spinning even after you're done spraying for 10 or 12 revolutions. And what that does is it helps this stuff tack up so it doesn't just drip off.
Cool. While we're doing some chain maintenance, what other things are we looking for?
Big thing when I look at chains is this chain here does need to be adjusted. We'll do that in another follow-up video. We'll actually go through the procedure on how to do that and give you some tips along the way to help ease with frustration when it comes to adjusting the chain. What I look for is like I said, any of those O-rings, want to make sure they're not coming out. I also look to see if the chain is kinked. I actually have a chain right over here that we just pulled off of a customer's bike.
That looks pretty nasty.
Yeah, if you don't do your maintenance, this is what happens. And you can see this chain is physically stuck, all kinked up. This will stay in any position that I put it in. And also what happens on chains when they get old is that every chain has a tight spot and a loose spot. And that tight spot, loose spot will become very much more prevalent. And sometimes you can actually literally feel it on the bike as you roll the bike. So this is why you want to do your maintenance, is to prevent this kind of thing.
So in closing, to me, it seems like something as simple as a little bit of chain maintenance can really improve the drivability and livability of your bike.
Absolutely. I mean, without 10 minutes out of your day for, I don't know, once every 300 to 500 miles, it seems kind of like a no-brainer. I mean, a lot of these chains, You know, a good quality chain will run you at least $120, all the way up to $300. So, you know, 12 or 14 or $16 bottle of lube, in my opinion, goes a long way.
You know, it seems to me too, while you're doing this, you're looking at the chain, gives you an opportunity to kind of take a look at the rest of the bike too, see what else is going on.
Yeah.
Really get in tune with your machine. So. Hey guys, thanks for watching today's Run It to Redline Tech Tip of the Week. If you want to keep your chain looking like this hunk of junk and looking like this, bring it to Redline Power Sports, Waukesha, Wisconsin. Take good care of you. If you have questions, concerns, comments, drop them in the comments section below. If you have questions regarding your own bike or maintenance practice, put it down there. We can touch on that on a later episode. We thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. And remember, run it to Redline.